I'm Laura, and today I'm going to show you a couple different postures used in a yoga class that you'll hear often. If you were to watch a video or go to a yoga class, there's a couple postures that are very common that I'd like to review with you today. So if you have a block, awesome. If you don't, it's not a big deal, but I'm going to be showing a kind of a little trick when we're doing one of the postures of how you kind of know if you're in that right posture or not. If you don't have a block, maybe something similar that you could use in place would be great. All right, so some of the postures that we're going to be reviewing today will be downward facing dog, very common one that you'll hear a lot of, plank, chaturanga, which is simply just lowering of the plank to the ground, cobra, and we'll touch on updog. So those are some of the postures we're going to get into today. So let's get started. All right, so first we'll get into our downward facing dog. Like I said, very common in yoga classes. When you go to a vinyasa class, hatha, some of the other yoga classes, most of them will use, will come to this posture. A lot of people don't like it at first because most times they're not doing it correctly. It's one of my favorite postures to do. It's a great way to stretch the shoulders, the back of the body, the back of the legs. So we'll get into those things. So first you're going to take your hands on your mat, spread your fingers wide, and you really want to think of pressing evenly into all 5 knuckles of each hand. And here, as you're in your tabletop, this is another posture that you'll hear in a yoga class, is tabletop, kind of coming to hands and knees. So we'll curl our toes under, lift the hips up and back, coming to downward facing dog. Now, in our downward facing dog, a lot of times people have their weight shifted forward onto their hands, so they're like in this kind of this plank with their butt up. But that's really not where we want to be. We want to be slightly with the knees bent, hip distance apart. Bend the knees slightly and lift the hips up and back like someone's pulling your tailbone up towards the sky and back. And feel the shift from your arms into your hips. And just let the head relax between your arms. And a lot of times this is difficult for people because of tight hamstrings. So with tight hamstrings, simply bend the knees. And as you bend your knees, press your chest towards your thighs. Good. And as you're here slowly, over time it's going to be more of a relaxing pose, but for right here, it's definitely active. It's not a resting pose by any means. It's definitely active. So come out of that, come to your knees. So sometimes if you're in that too long, it's need a little bit of a break, but so here's where I want to use the block if you have a block. If you don't have a block, that's okay, just follow along. And so take the block. This is a good way to kind of know if you're pressing your chest to your thighs, as I mentioned, or if you're just kind of too far forward. So you're going to take the block, have it kind of close so you can reach it when we're in our downward facing dog. So curl your toes under, lift your hips up and back, and reach for the block, and take the block on top of the thighs, press your chest or belly into the block, and lift the hips up high. So here you are with the block squeezing between your thighs and your belly. So now watch as I start to shift forward and I start to lose that block because I'm shifting too far forward. I'm not shifting my chest and belly back. So it's a good way to kind of test out, am I doing it properly? Yeah, so check those hips up and back. Press the mat away like you're trying to press a car uphill. And at the same time, you're pressing the hips back. Good, and remove the block. Come to hands and knees. Good, sit back, shake out the wrists. So that's something that I'll continue to work with you all on to get better at it. And over time, you're going to get better and better and more flexible and able to get those legs a little bit straighter Maybe eventually those heels come down to the mat. But in the meantime, don't stress about it and just try to enjoy the pose as much as you can. All right, so the other posture that we tend to go into from downward facing dog at times in the class is our plank position. So let's lift the hips up and back, curl the toes under. We'll come back into that downward dog for just a moment. Good. And then we're going to shift the shoulders over wrist. You'll hear that term to kind of find that plank. Slide those feet back. Feet are about hip distance. Hands are about shoulder distance, coming to our plank position. Now, always an option to drop to knees. So we drop to our knees, coming to knee plank. As long as those knees are behind the hips, you're still using that core and your shoulders to keep your body upright. So never a problem to come here. Maybe for a short time, you can be on the toes and keep that plank, but always listening to your body here. So when we're in our knee plank, your head, neck, hips, kind of in one line, straight back, because we don't want to be too much with our butt up. You don't want to sag those hips because that's hard on that low back. So using the core to keep the hips up. Yeah. All right, so if we want to test out the toe full plank, curl the toes under, come to full plank. And as you hold this plank, you're pressing the mat away. Your hips and thighs are very active here. Belly button's pulled in. So again, gaze is slightly in front of the fingers, so maybe 6 inches forward. So thinking head, neck, spine, hips, trying to be in one line here. All right. Holding that belly. So not dropping the hips. This is bad for that low back. And we don't want those hips up too high either, because that's kind of like, you know, that's where the abs aren't doing their work. You're kind of using your hips to hold them up. Hips up, keeping that bend into the hips. We want to have that flat back, that neutral position. So not too low, not too high, right in the middle. All right, so coming off those knee hands, coming to the knees, rolling the wrists. So down dog, plank. So from down dog to plank, part of the vinyasa series you've heard, maybe you have not, sun salutations. There's sun salutations A and sun salutations B. I have a video that shows sun salutation A on part of my video series. So you'll see a lot of the downward dog, plank, chaturanga, and cobra. So that's why I like to kind of break it down into each part. So I'm going to show you plank moving into chaturanga, which is simply lowering down to the mat. So as we lower to the mat, we want to keep those elbows in tight, keep that chest lowering down. Such a great movement to engage the shoulders, back, chest, the whole core always. So let's just come right into our plank, and we'll start with a knee plank. So we'll have those fingertips spread wide, pressing into all 10 knuckles. So you're on those knees. Again, find that neutral position of the core. And as you lower down, thinking of bending the elbows and keeping them as close to the body as you can, like you're trying to scrape the inside of your arm on your torso. So you're going to lower the chest down to the mat. Yep, and untuck the toes. So that's right before we get to Cobra, and that'll be the next step, but that's our chaturanga. Good, let's lift back up. And if you want to do that again, pause, rewind, go back and keep trying each part. Good way to kind of get good at each of these pieces that I'm breaking down. Okay, so that was knee chaturanga. Let's curl the toes under, come to your plank. So plank, full plank, lowering the body to the mat, same thing, bend the elbows, send those elbows straight back, keep those elbows close in like you're scraping your torso, look down towards the mat, lower the chest all the way down, untuck toes. Well, good, we'll pause there, good. Pause for a moment, roll the wrists, reset. So now we're going to take that chaturanga into a cobra pose. Breaking it down a little bit further. All right, so knee plank. Good. Spread those fingers wide. Lower the chest down. Good. In, untuck the toes, press the tops of the feet into the mat. The hands are right underneath those shoulders, pressing into the mat. Inhale, lift to a cobra pose. So as you lift a cobra, thinking of pulling the chest forward, sternum reaching forward, pull those shoulder blades back, and then exhale, lower. Good. We'll do that a couple times. Inhale, lift the chest, cobra pose. Exhale, lower it down. Good. Let's do that once again. Inhale, lift the chest. Press those hands into the mat, but use those strong back muscles to lift. Exhale, lower. Good. Come up onto hands and knees. All right, so we'll do that same thing, but this time we'll do it on the toes. So lowering down, chaturanga, right into cobra. All right, so coming to plank. All right, so lowering down chaturanga, and we're gonna go right into cobra. So keep those elbows in, bend those elbows, send those elbows straight back, lower down, untuck the toes. Inhale, lift the chest to cobra. Exhale, lower. Let's do that again. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. Let's do one more. Inhale, lift. Exhale, lower. All right. Come back up, tabletop, or sit back on those heels. So one last part, instead of cobra, you could also come to an up dog. So up dog is you are pressing the mat away. You're pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, and you're going to lift the chest and pull the thighs up off the mat. So you kind of a more of a strength move with those arms and shoulders. Not necessarily any better than Cobra. Cobra is a little bit of a different back stretch movement. Up dog, you'll feel the difference. Just kind of feel like what you feel works better for you. And some days you may do one, and the other days you may do the other. So kind of just depending on what you're feeling. All right, so let's come down to, all the way down to the mat. So we'll come all the way down to the mat. So when we come into Cobra, we inhale, lift. So here we are, we're gonna come into up dog. So press your hands into the mat, tops of the feet plugged into your mat. Inhale, lift the chest, press the thighs away from the mat, lift the chest, tops of feet plugged into the mat. If you had shoes on, your shoelaces would be pressing into the mat. Lift the chest, use that core. So you don't want that back dropping. Use that core to keep it lifted. Lift the chest, good. And then exhale, lower. All right, so we've covered down dog, plank, chaturanga, cobra, and up dog. Those are the kind of the key parts of a sun salutation. So, are you ready to run through all of it? Let's do it. Let's do two. The first one will be with the knees. Second one will be without the knees. And we'll run through it and see how you feel. I take that back. Let's do 4, because we'll do cobra and then we'll do up dog. So we'll try knees, cobra, and then with the up dogs in there too. So we'll do it several times. So, all right. So let's start in our downward facing dog. So we're going to curl the toes under, lift the hips up and back, find that downward facing dog. And maybe you've been practicing this, so now you feel a little bit better, right? All right, so bending the knees, sink the hips up and back. Yep, press the mat away. Good. Let's shift the shoulders forward, come to plank. Maybe adjust those feet behind you. Drop knees. So we're going to do cobra this first time through. Exhale, lower down, chaturanga. Remember, keep those elbows tight. Untuck the toes. Inhale, lift chest to cobra. Exhale, lower. Curl the toes under, push the mat away. Come back up, downward facing dog. All right, so let's do the same thing with knee plank, but we're going to try the up dog this time. Shift shoulders over wrist. Come to plank. Drop the knees. Exhale, lower. Good. Untuck the toes. Press the hands into the mat. Inhale, lift the chest. Pull those thighs away. Press into the tops of the feet. Here's your up dog. All right, so here you can just bend the knees slightly to the mat. Curl the toes under. Lift the hips up and back. Find your downward facing dog. All right. So pausing the video here if you'd like to go back and try that again, or let's go right into the toe plank with Cobra and Up Dog. Shift shoulders over wrist. Find your plank. Exhale, lower down, chaturanga. Keep those elbows in. You got it. Untuck toes. Inhale, lift the chest to Cobra. Exhale, lower. Curl the toes under. Press the mat away. Come to knees and then hips up and back. Downward facing dog. All right, so one more time through. This time we're going to do toe plank. So your full plank into your up dog. So downward facing dog. Shift shoulders over wrists. Adjust those feet. Exhale, lower down, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. So you're kind of sliding through. Pull that chest up. Drop the knees, curl the toes under. Lift those hips up and back. Downward facing dog. All right. Drop to your knees. And take a rest here. Roll the wrists. So we covered several different pieces of that. Feel free to watch it several times so you feel comfortable with each of those pieces, getting stronger with each of those pieces, and then when you can kind of put it all together in a yoga practice, you won't feel so like, I don't know what they're talking about, because believe me, we've all been there. And a great way to do it is just break it down to learn it the proper way, and then you get better and better at it. And it's a great, just doing that a couple times kind of really works your shoulders, your chest, your back, your core, even your thighs. Plank, when you hold that plank, there's a lot of muscles at work there. So really good for our posture when we work shoulders, back, the whole thing. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you next time.